And we are live. Welcome to another crypto market update. We're going to go over many cryptocurrencies within the crypto space here today. We already talked about BTC within the previous video. We already talked about the bullish or the bearish push to the downside, breaking the support level around $9,400. And we do see the pullback potentially coming in on the 1 hour. On the 4 hour, we haven't really broken the zone yet, but the bears have really pushed it and held this candle well into the deep part of the support there. So it's looking like it's created a lower low in terms of the candle closures. But if you're just talking the distance of the actual price of the wick, it still has not broken the low we made back in the 19th of February. So not going to jump too quick to say that it's completely bearish, but a lot of the alts that we will cover in this video have broken their major significant levels, which indicate that we could see a potential opportunity for a short on our hands. So we will be going over many coins here, a lot of which are looking more bearish, but we do want to keep in mind that BTC has not really fully broken the level of support, so we don't want to completely think that we are going to have a bearish move on our hands. Obviously, the bulls could still pick the price up. We don't exactly know yet, but as of right now, we want to be a little bit more cautious. And if we do make a lower low, really signifying the break of the $9,400, $9,500 support, then we will look to enter a short, and then we'll look for short positions. We'll look for continuation patterns on the smaller time frames to get some short exposure. But right now, we don't want to be too quick to make any entries just yet. Some is fine, but for the push to the downside. But because BTC is here, we don't want to go full ballistic and just short every opportunity we can find. So now, in that said, we'll go over the different pairs we have within the market. Start left, and then we will work right. So this is Ethereum. Ethereum is in a pretty good spot for a short. We've broken. Let's start from the daily here because that's always very important. What are we doing? So we are in a pretty major zone, a pretty key zone of resistance here. Let's get our little snip and discuss what we're able to see. So we're in a pretty key zone. We see it's a key zone of resistance in the middle of the chart, and it turns into a pretty strong level of support. We're now seeing the price use this same area as a nice level of resistance. We were making higher lows, so we were holding a resistance at like so, and then we're making a higher low, so the price was squeezing into the area, and then it looks like we could be making a move to the downside. It's just a matter of if we're holding a support, or if we're gonna kind of consolidate, or if we're gonna really push down and see some bearish action where we could capture a little bit of profits to the downside. So that's the I guess overview of the larger time frames. It's a pretty key zone within 2019, middle of 2019, previous resistance, new support. So we can see that that's a pretty key zone of supply there. And then talking about the potential level of a demand, what we could see next, we see it's a very key level around 231. Very obvious back in 2019 and even in 2018. We see that it's a zone where price respected and reacted to this area before. So that's probably going to be the key zone where buyers are going to be located if we do push to the downside. So that will be our targets if we do want to enter a short. So now in that said, let's look at the smaller time frames like the 1 hour and get a good breakdown of what is happening. This is that zone that we're talking about. So we do see the price made an impulse move to the downside and is holding. Now what are we looking for? So we got two of the structures. We got three structures basically set, right? So one of the things that we want to look at is the VSA, the volume support analysis. We see that there's increasing sell volume coming into the market, not much buy volume, and we see decreasing buy volume compared to the kind of first half of the consolidation. There was more buy volume coming in before, and then now there is not much. So we see decreasing buy volume coming into the market, and we see increasing sell volume. That is, for us, a great check mark. Number two, what are we looking for? We're looking for price action, or we're looking for price action patterns that break, that give us validity. Well, we have this symmetrical triangle. We have the first zone tested. The resistance is not super well respected. We see I call this count one zone, but we technically could call it as two zones. Theoretically, we don't have another touch here, so we don't really call that a super dependable area, but we have basically a top here where we're making lower highs. Let's just call this a zone because we're not really considering the resistance too much. The main thing we want to consider is the support zone, where we have an anchor point right here. We have our first level of interaction, we have our second level interaction, and we have a third level of interaction, and then we have a fourth level interaction. So that is 4 levels, giving us a dependable area. Now, what we're looking for is a price to break a dependable area, potentially giving us a shift in trend. And that's exactly what we see here. So that is our second confirmation that we have a potential trade on our hands, because we have a dependable area, 4 touches of a zone that have been respected. We see the price break to the downside, and now we're looking for market structure, our last level. We broke to the downside, making a lower low. Now we're looking to enter on a lower high, because this is a lower high, this is a lower high, this is a lower high, this is a lower low, this is a lower low, and looking for a lower low. So now we're looking for a lower high to enter, but we want to enter at the completion of the lower high when we know that the demand is basically done, or there's no more demand. There's a lack of demand that is able to push the price up here. So then what's the next move going to be? It's going to be down here, because like always, the market moves in waves. Like we can see here, it moves in waves. So we have to assume that it's not just going to go from here to here instantly. It's going to move in waves, which is totally fine, and we have to accept that, and we have to have patience to wait through it. So we made our wave to the downside. We're going to potentially make a wave back up, kind of testing the previous levels of support, hopefully as new levels of resistance. That is the structure, that is the game plan, and that's what we're going to look for Ethereum on our hands. So that's the outlook. And let's just draw in our level of support here. Oops, that didn't click. So that is our level of support. We are looking for a pullback around to that zone. And we'll see if it comes. This is on the hour chart. And then we would be looking bearish to potentially these zones here for first levels of take profit. Obviously, that risk reward is looking mighty fine. You know, even if we have a stop loss above the previous high, which is just right here, we're looking at a first level of take profit of, let's say, 2 to 1, which is pretty ideal. And then if a price drops even further, that's great. You know, we do have a horizontal zone to consider, which is this area right here. I definitely noticed that, but like anything, there's always going to be support and resistance zones unless it's like an all-time high or all-time low or something. But definitely looking to enter if we get a confirmation there, because willing to accept that being the low and then moving stop loss to almost break even if we hold this, and then trying to reduce risk. And if it breaks this zone, then that's gravy. We'll be able to hit that 2 to 1 risk reward and then beyond if BTC does actually start to fall pretty significantly here. So that's the overall trade for Ethereum. We'll move on to link for the next one. I'm just going to zoom in so we get a little better idea of what we're able to see. But Ethereum looks pretty good, for short anyways. Link has also broken out. Let's take a step back to even the daily chart here. Not really going to go on the weekly. So on the daily, we can see we broke our previous zone of resistance. Oops. Let's see if we can salvage it. Yeah, we can salvage it. So we broke our previous zone of resistance, which is going to be right here. This is going to be where the candle closed at the zone, which is now going to be our new level of resistance. It does look like we are breaking this zone with the daily candle still at 6 hours left, 6 hours and 17 minutes left, but it looks like it's now falling below our zone of support. So we'd have to draw our next area of support, which is probably going to be right around here. I might increase it and make it a bit of a zone, but that's probably going to be the next area of support that I'm looking at. And then we got our next area of support right around there. But first, we do got a bit of a zone. And then if we really look on the 4 hour in this zone here, or even in this zone here, we even see a mid-range zone that the price is currently sitting at. So that's the current outlook for Chainlink. We broke that zone. You know, I'm not looking to completely short just yet, although if we see a pullback to this zone, I think that would be a pretty good opportunity on our hands. But we don't want to short the market too much, because obviously we see that there's a massive move towards the upside, and only when we see the lower high form, and then we set the start of the lower low. Then we can kind of see the staircase pattern come in, kind of like we saw here, you know, like where we saw lower highs and lower lows. We don't want to enter at the complete top. We don't need to. We just need to enter at the chunks of the move, and we can capture a lot of profit in those areas as well. So we're going to stay a little bit patient, but let's zoom in on 4 hour here. See, the price broke a level of support. I think we could squeeze that in a little bit closer, like so. Just so we got a nice little support there that we're able to hold. Not much of a no demand there, so there's definitely a little bit of demand, although obviously there's stronger levels of sell pressure coming in compared to the buy pressure. We saw, you know, increasing buy pressure up here, especially all the way here. We saw a lot of buy pressure coming into the market, increasing buy pressure all here, and then now you do see decreasing sell pressure because we saw a tremendous amount of sell pressure here, which is a little bit worrying for sellers. But then, you know, with this candle here, you could kind of see the curve kind of start up here with a lot of sellers really taking control within the market after we broke our level of support. So just looking at the quick questions in the TikTok, not really trying to get over them. So yeah, right now we're just below the level of support there. If we do come back, you know, we have two options for a potential short here because we see strong volume distribution within the market. That's our first indication that we are going to go short. Second indication that we are seeing market structure is making lower lows and lower highs. So these are lower highs. This is a low, this held a low, and then now we're making lower lows. So market structure is at a downtrend. So that for me is a second confirmation that we are looking for shorts. And then now we're just looking for price action. So we broke an ascending trend line right here. Theoretically, you know, if ideally we would have had it pushed and then a pullback validating this nice confluence zone. We did not get that, unfortunately. We basically got a straight line, not straight line, but we got a pretty quick move down to our last level of support right around here, and then we broke through it, making a strong single push to the downside, like so. So this is one strong push to the downside. So now we're looking for a potential pullback validating the previous level of support, and we see that right here as a new level of resistance. We're looking for some level of price action confirmation on the resistance, and then that will be the completion of the last level of entry we will need in order to enter. So got a little bit more on Chainlink, but looks like a promising opportunity. But like I said before, we will want to see that pullback for us to get that highest probability entry. I'm going to stick it on the 4 hour because in my opinion, it looks a little bit, I can have more patience on a larger time frame. So now we're going to go to TRX, which is the next one. So we'll go to the daily here. And we'll get rid of some of the horizontal zones. I think we already kind of have the main zones that we're going to be looking at, which we do. Main thing I want to be looking at is the fact that on the daily chart, we have a strong level of demand right underneath us. So instantly, I'm not really looking to really enter here. Whereas the other ones here, we see that, like you can argue that there's a level of support right here, 100% on Link. But like I said before, we are looking for a pullback, so then we can at least have, you know, the, I guess, 6% move from the resistance to support. And if we get beyond further that to a next major level, that would be great. But then from this point, that's a pretty high probability situation. And then obviously, if we get the next leg down, that would be less probable in the infinite amount of probabilities that could occur in the market. So, in that said, we haven't broken the support yet on TRX. So I'm not loving it for a short to start off. But you know, if BTC does hold, then this could be a good opportunity that we could hold this nice level of support. These two white zones are going to be the supports that we're currently holding. We can see it's still above that zone right now. And then looking at the previous zones of support and resistance, we see that this zone is a pretty significant zone within the chart. key market structure like so. Make it a little bit lower. So we got that zone. I don't really see anything right now. Like theoretically, you could draw a potential descending zone like so. If it connects, so we got 3 connection points, so it's a potentially dependable zone. And then if we get one more, then it's a dependable zone. And if we get that squeeze we're looking for, and if BTC does hold our level of support, then this could be a potential opportunity for a long. But at this point in time, we're not really looking to enter this just yet. It's still very early in the process. But it's good to have options, right? It's good to have both long and short opportunities in the market. So then if BTC does decide to kind of go one way or another, remember that as traders, we're not trying to have a crystal ball and, predict exactly where every price asset is going to go, or every asset price is going to go, that's not our job, right? We're looking for the highest probability situations, and we're always being dynamic, always changing. Not always, but like we're trying to find the best probabilities that will go with our bias for the market. But if BTC suddenly changes, it's good to have setups that weren't in your bias, but then if something happens, are now in your wheelhouse, so you have an edge in case of kind of infinite opportunities if BTC does something that you don't expect it, because sometimes or often it definitely will. So for sorry, just gotta get another drink there. So now we can go forward here, just looking at a number of people online. So on Tron, remember how we talked about the daily? Strong level of support there. Looking at the hourly, strong level. Actually, let's just make this green, because then it kind of signifies that it's a zone of support. It's a major zone of support that we're looking at, just so we know. So we got a strong level of support there, and this is our major structural level of supply. And then we got a major one up here as well. But right now, we're just kind of getting squeezed within a zone. The resistance is well respected. The support has been respected already once. So we're kind of at the low. So maybe if we are able to get, let's get this zone here. So maybe if we're able to get, one more touch or respect, then that would look good for a potential opportunity. Kind of like so. So we'll see how it goes. Obviously, we don't exactly know, but if that was the case, then we obviously want to be entering somewhere around here. Higher low structurally, broken the descending resistance. Hopefully, at that point, we see higher buy volume coming into the market. But that is that. We'll go on to the next pair. Not a whole lot more to talk about on TRX. Yeah. So an XRP is the next one. Also broken the major structural demand zone. We can see right here. Let's just get rid of this. So we can see on the daily chart, we broke the demand zone. We still got 6 hours left until we close, but pretty darn sure we're going to close at these lows here. So we're kind of middle of a range where we have a demand zone sitting at 245, 24 cents, or 245 cents or whatever, and then the supply zone, which is our previous level of demand, which is going to be around 0.2641 ish, and then that's the demand zone. We see it's a pretty big head and shoulders. If we get that retest, that would be ideal. If you don't see the head and shoulders, maybe if we zoom in, you'll be able to see it a little bit more. And then also if we move this like so, and if you can't see it now, you should definitely be able to. Let's just draw it for fun, just to make sure everyone is on the right page. So we got our left shoulder right here, we got our right shoulder right here, and then we got our head. We got the come up, we got the left shoulder, we got the head, and then we got the right shoulder, and then hopefully we had a retest and we confirm as a new resistance right there, and then we'll look to enter on that resistance and then get a push down at least to these levels here at a minimum, and then maybe even potentially to the next key zone kind of within the chart like so. But it might be a little bit higher up and then the lower zone, but that price action pattern will look pretty favorable if we get the price to come back and retest this zone. We don't want to chase. We don't want to enter at the completion of an impulse move. We want to enter at the completion of a pullback or an exhaustion move. So that's what we're going to be waiting for XRP. Now zooming on the 1 hour, we see that push to the downside. So, theoretically we could look to enter potentially on the pullback on a smaller time frame if we move to the 5-minute or 15-minute. But at this point in time, we're going to be patient. Let's just look at the 5-minute here. Still making lower lows and lower highs. Not awesome to see. If we really want to break it down, we could get a nice little zone right here. We see higher lows coming to potentially break a zone. If we really wanted to kind of break it down, we have this zone kind of like here. So we got a little bit of an ascending triangle coming in, and then we got a mid-range zone like so. So we got a couple areas where we have a pretty key area on the chart. So if we break above, then we structurally potentially have made a higher high. If you're wanting to get from this point to this point, that might not be worth it unless you're putting a stop loss pretty close to it, because then your risk reward would not even be worth it. But if you're trying to get from this zone to kind of where the retest zone is, then that would obviously be a move that would be more worth it. Your stop loss would probably be below either this wick or these bodies of the candles right there. If it does push back and pull back and retest, and you form a higher low situation, and then you'd maybe even want to be looking for some descending zones like so. Let's just look for descending zones. Yes, that's a potentially descending zone. We see our first touch, second touch, third touch, fourth touch. So it's a dependable zone. So we see a nice squeeze occurring here. So if we do get a close above this zone, especially above this zone when we get a retest, then we could see a drop pretty quickly to our next level of demand, kind of like here. But then if we come back, let's just draw it on. I think I'm talking, but it's hard to explain without this. So we got two options here on the 5-minute chart. Just trying to break it down on the smaller time frames more, because I'm trying to trade a little bit more on the smaller time frames to get back into it. Trading multiple time frames is definitely really good. I'll get into it. I'll get into that in another video just for the Performante members. So we got an anchor point right here. We got our first point. I guess you can classify that as one point here, or you can classify that as 2 touch points. But let's just say we got an anchor point right here, and we got our first rejection, we got our second rejection, and we got our third rejection. We also have some higher lows squeezing the price, but personally, I think it would make more sense until we wait for the horizontal zone right here, because it would most likely go like this, and then we got a target right here, and then we have a stop loss probably above this zone, or if this zone, but then the risk reward would not be good. Might want to get it maybe here, so then the risk reward's maybe 2.2, 2.5-ish, and then you maybe want to be taking profits a little bit early because it looks a little bit extended with the waves. Not too much. We could see something like this, but we'll see how it goes. We don't exactly know just yet. We'll see how the break of this goes for a downside move. But then for an upside move, because this is a major push, right? A major push. We could be looking for a pullback to test this support as a new resistance. So what we could be looking for that is a potential, let's get our arrow, a potential higher high. That's initially what we're looking for. So it's A, breaking the descending zone, 2, breaking the structure high like here and like here, forming a potential higher high. Then we're looking, because then we have the confirmation that there is A, a higher high, and B, it's broken the descending zone. And then C, we're wanting to see higher buy volume come in, and then decreasing sell volume. We're kind of already seeing that decreasing sell volume come in. So then if we see increasing buy volume with the same decreasing sell volume, or the limited sell volume compared to the buy volume, that will give us enough of a confluence of the 3 things we're looking for. 1, market structure, 2, price action, and 3, VSA, to say that we could be seeing a potential small accumulation phase for the markup, for the retest, for then the major move to the downside, which then will look for a short opportunity up there. So yeah, that's the how we're going to be looking at the markets for XRP. And then BNB, entered a small position, not too much, but we'll look for the reasons why here. But let's just look at Ethereum on the 1 hour, coming and pulling back here, which is pretty good to see. I think we were looking at it here, and it closed red, and it came back all the way down to here. But nonetheless, not really anything worth trading right here or here. TRX is well. XRP already talked about. So then BNB is the last one. Quickly looking back at the daily, this is such a major zone. You can see very, very clearly around $21.20 or 40 cents, around there is a major structural key zone on the daily chart. And then looking back down, the next zone we really can see is going to be right around here. Pretty well a ways from where we are currently right now. So then looking at the 4-hour chart, we can see that the price has broken our major demand zone, which is around $21.40. And then it has broken down below the zone. Not seeing a tremendous amount of sell pressure, surprisingly, compared to the buy pressure. We're seeing a decent amount of buy pressure within that consolidation, and we're not seeing a lot of buy pressure now, but we're seeing a surprising lack of sell pressure, even though we're making a clear move to the downside on the 4-hour chart. But now going to the 1-hour, we can see definitely a lacking amount of buy pressure looking at the smaller time frames after the break, kind of within the consolidation, getting towards the break when there was lower lows and lower highs. And do see sell pressure still pushing strong, although we are seeing a bit of a pullback here now. But like with these other trades, it would be nice to see the price come back to these lows here. I entered for a quick little profit. I already have stop loss at break even, so I'm not going to be risking anything. And if the price does go further, that's great. I already taken some profit, so it's not a big trade or anything, so I didn't really discuss it on the Discord. But that is the short opportunity that we are looking for. A potential pullback to these zones here. You know, looking back at the 4-hour, that's the ideal opportunity here that's in this trade, in my opinion. We would be looking at the smaller time frames, but like XRP, like we talked about, like TRX, we talked about, you know, if we do hold that support there, and then we get a break towards the upside, that's another opportunity. And then Ethereum is an opportunity as well if we get a pullback to around these levels. So that's the current outlook for those alts. And let's just quickly look at the 5-minute for BNB. Let's just delete this for now. Still making lower lows and lower highs, seeing strong sell volume coming in. But overall looking pretty good. Like I said before, you know, seeing that pullback on the hour chart would really, really be nice. But at this point, I think it's a little overextended to enter long. So yeah, I'll discuss what I'm kind of planning on doing for the smaller time frames in another video completely, I think. I think that would be best. So then going on to another alt here. Before we go on to MATIC, I'm just going to quickly check the TikTok comments to see, and then I'll kind of cut this out when we are doing the YouTube live here. So the question is, what stock? We're trading cryptocurrencies, not stocks. Robert. And that's it. Okay, so going back to MATIC here. Major level of support going to be 0.01898 for sure. So we're kind of stuck between a descending triangle, so we're not really wanting to take any action. If we do get the bulls to start entering the market, you know, if we do enter at the lows here on the smaller time frame, necessarily wouldn't be a bad thing because we do have quite a bit to climb before our major structural outline. You know, you're looking at 12-14%, which is, for me, a very, very sizable trade that could occur. On the 1 hour, we don't really see a nice clear trend. We see lower highs and lower lows still. We don't really see a trend line that we can draw on a time frame that we like. Yeah, nothing really worth trading on MATIC right now. I think it's too sketchy to call this a support because some of the alts have already broken. And I think we have a better opportunity on some of the different alts we have in the market. But it's a well-respected zone, right? So if we break and then pull back, then great. We have a structure that we can depend on that could potentially yield us some profits. But at this point in time, we're not going to enter a short right at a support. That's just not something that we do. We need a criteria to be fulfilled before we like to enter, and this criteria is not yet fulfilled because structurally speaking, we haven't made a lower low and we're wanting to enter on a lower high. So there's a lot of things that need to take place before we look to enter. Cardano, same thing. We haven't made a structural lower low. This is the 4 hour, so we're definitely not going to look to enter short. You know, if we are looking to enter long, just talking about the market structure, we see this resistance here, resistance, 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 turning into a potential nice new level of support. We've already seen buy pressure enter once into the market, giving us confirmation that there is our first injection of buy pressure in the market. If we get our second injection of buy pressure coming into the market, obviously that's more of an indication that there are buyers in the area. If we then start to see higher lows and higher highs on these smaller time frames like the 1 hour or even smaller, that would be great. And if we break that support, then our entire bias will change. So trying to see if we can find we don't really see any trend lines that we can use to connect the lower highs, so there's not a whole lot of a trade for us to do. You know, if there's a trend line that connected the lower highs, we could use our support and the connection of the well-respected descending resistance to form a squeeze in the market, which we have an edge on, but at this point in time, we don't really see anything we can trade on Cardano. Atom, not really. I just don't love Atom recently. It's just in such a sideways consolidation. You know, not really seeing anything I'd like to trade. We are in a really strong level of support, though. We can see this is the 4 hour chart. We can see it's a pretty strong level of support. So if we get the buyers to come back into the market, it is a potential zone, but at this point in time, I'm not really going to be looking at it. And with ETC, like I said before, not really loving it. We're kind of near level of support there. Just making lower lows, kind of near level of resistance, but not really at it. So not seeing something that I love to trade on ETC or Atom. Our Cardano looks like a better opportunity because we're right at a support zone, so we're looking at a smaller time frame. It could yield us a better opportunity. And then MATIC is also at a nice level of support, but we're not really looking at that. So Cardano is like kind of like the only option we have within that group of alts. And then BNB's coming back. Looks like XRP on the 5 minute. Let's just keep this on the 1 hour because we're mainly looking on the 1 hour within this zone here. So XRP looks like it's pulling back a little bit. TRX looks like it's pulling back on the 1 hour for BTC. We should see a little green candle. Yeah, we see a couple green candles pulling back, so that makes sense of the overall market pulling back. And yeah, not a bad position to be in. That's what we're hoping. That's what we're looking for. And hopefully we don't see a whole lot of buy volume on the pullback. Last 3 coins we're looking at, and then that is the completion of the crypto market analysis. We have, we'll start off with Dash here. So starting off with the daily, actually let's start off with the daily chart here. So see the $100 range, very significant level on the chart. Psychological level, technical level, both well respected. Strong level. And then if we break above that, the next really key respected zone is going to be at the $76 range. Pretty significant drop rate, around like 25%. And then we have the mid-range zone around 92, right around there. We're not going to incorporate that right away. And then we do see that it's closing at a zone. We still have 5 hours left, but on the daily candle, which is very significant, we see that the daily candle is closing below the major support area that we've held for quite a while since that massive push to the upside, signifying that there is higher confidence in the bears. We are also showing a lack of buy volume, but there isn't much sell volume too, right? So hopefully we'll get that pullback, and then we see a strength in sellers coming into the market. That would be ideal. And then diving into the smaller time frames, we have that push, the impulse push to the downside. Now we're looking for the exhaustion phase, the pullback phase of the market, because the market moves in waves, and we're wanting to see the price pull back. So, you know, you could enter a counter trend move long to the pullback phase. I personally love doing that too much. I like to enter at the completion of the exhaustion once we have price action confirmation. So that's kind of my strategy on the 1 hour. We don't really have too much. I think we could draw a trend line connecting the highs here. Potentially. Kind of like so. So you could draw a descending zone. We have 3 rejections, so it's a potentially respected zone. So if we see one more level, we could make it a potentially dependable zone. And then if we have a zone of confluence, like for example, like, I don't know, somewhere around here. And then if we like reject kind of here and then bounce up and then pull back, you know, if you have an entry of here and then your risk is, let's say, 1.5% and your reward is 4%, you know, that's looking at a pretty good risk reward that I'd be willing to capture. And if it goes higher up into the resistance, that's great. But like always, your counter trend trading, you want to ensure that you're capturing profits quick, putting that stop loss to break even very, very quickly, and then capturing those profits at 2-3 risk reward, something around there. That for me is the ideal setup for the quick retest, and then you're looking to enter at the completion of the exhaustion on the pullback there. So we'll leave that there, but that is Dash. Litecoin, I think we already went over, right? I believe so, maybe not. We're just holding still above our level of support at $67, so we don't want to enter just yet. If it breaks below, then we'll be more interested, but at this point in time, it's not really close to any major ranges, so we don't really want to be looking to enter. EOS is a potential opportunity. Looking at the daily chart, we see that the price is making lower highs and lower lows, breaking a major zone within the chart and then retesting it as a nice new level of resistance. Let's get our snip right here, like so, resistance turning into a support. Maybe it's not perfect, like so, turning into support and then now turning into a resistance. We see a pullback right here with a lot more sell volume than buy volume on the way up, which is good to see. And then on the 4 hour, there's that pullback, and then now we're making a lower low. This could be a lower high with lots of sell volume coming in. So in my opinion, EOS looks like a really good opportunity for a short. So we made our push to the downside, our pullback. This is our lower high, and then now we're making our lower low structure, and this is our lower high from here, and this is our lower low from here. So once we start the initiation to start that lower low, I'm wanting to enter. So then we're really looking at the smaller time frames here to see if we're able to get an entry on EOS. So that's the overall analysis. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave a comment on the YouTube channel and we'll be able to help you out. So thank you very much for watching, and like always, happy trading, and hope you guys have a profitable rest of the week.